8:45. Here's the news, edited by Lakshman Fonseca and read by Chandima Virakon. The headlines. Minister Harun Fernando says the President Ranil Wickremesinghe should be re-elected as the next president. Health Ministry warns the number of HIV cases has seen a 14% increase. The Department of Meteorology has issued a heat index advisory for 5 provinces. The National Election Commission is to officially announce the upcoming presidential election in late July or early August. Prevailing dry weather has affected nearly 10,000 people across the island. Pope Francis calls for ceasefire in Gaza and Ukraine in Easter message. Local stories in detail. Minister Harun Fernando says the President, Ranil Wickremesinghe, should be re-elected. He said the public should re-elect Ranil Wickremesinghe as the President and take measures to rebuild and save the country. He further stated that President Ranil Wickremesinghe should be nominated as the common candidate to provide him an opportunity to continue his dedicated service to the country. He also stressed if the Samagi Jana Balawegaya did not come to an agreement with the UNP, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa will definitely be isolated. However, parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriyalla said no one from the SJB will join with the UNP. He said all leading political parties have now separated into political groups and only the SJB remains as a united political party so far. The number of HIV cases reported in 2023 has seen a 14% increase, with most cases being reported from males between the ages of 20 and 30 years. The National STD or AIDS Control Program Director of the Health Ministry, Dr. Janaki Vidanapatirana, said that 695 new HIV cases had been reported in 2023. It was a 14% increase compared to the numbers reported in 2022, she added. Dr. Vidanapatirana said that the medicine named PrEP could be used by at-risk individuals who wish to prevent the disease. She advised for those who were already HIV patients and who wished to engage in sexual activities could also take medicine to ensure that their sexual partner did not contract the disease. The Department of Meteorology has issued a heat index advisory effective tomorrow for 5 provinces and 5 other districts. Heat index, the temperature felt on the human body, is expected to increase up to caution level at some places in western, southern, northwestern, north central, eastern province and Ratnapura, Monaragala, Mana, Vaunia and Mullaituru districts. As per the advisory, under this level of temperature, fatigue is possible with prolonged exposure and activity, while continuing activity could result in heat cramps. The Department of Meteorology advised the public to stay hydrated, take breaks in the shade as often as possible, and limit strenuous outdoor activities. They are also requested to check up on the elderly and the sick, never leave children unattended inside vehicles, and to wear lightweight and white or light-colored clothing. The National Election Commission says it will officially announce the upcoming presidential election in late July or early August. The NEC chairman RMAL Ratnayaka said the election will be held sometime between September 17th and October 17th. He said that the new voter list for 2024 will be used for the upcoming presidential election and clarified that the current electoral law will govern the election process. The voter registration process is currently underway and is expected to be completed by July, he added. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with the local stories, prevailing dry weather has affected nearly 10,000 people from 3,027 families across the island. The Department of Meteorology said Gampaha district bears the brunt of the dry conditions, with 7,053 people impacted. An additional 2,813 people in the Kagala district are also facing difficulties. However, the Met Department predicts showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in western, southern, Sabaragamu and Uva provinces after 2 p.m. Fairly heavy showers above 50 mm are likely at some places. To conclude the local news, the headlines again. Minister Haran Fernando says that President Ranil Wickremesinghe should be re-elected as the next president. Health Ministry warns the number of HIV cases has seen a 14% increase. The Department of Meteorology has issued a heat index advisory for 5 provinces. The National Election Commission is to officially announce the upcoming presidential election in late July or early August. Prevailing dry weather has affected nearly 10,000 people across the island. That concludes the local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
And on the main news story, the UNESCO adopted a declaration to commemorate the International Day of Vesak in alignment with the organization's core mandate of promoting global peace, intercultural dialogue and the preservation of cultural heritage. The Executive Board of UNESCO has taken this decision at its 219th session. The decision was led by the permanent delegation of Sri Lanka to UNESCO with the co-sponsorship of a cross-regional group of 38 member states, of which 16 were members of the Executive Board. That came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatmya.
Watch Live is brought to you by
CIB New Year offer. Valuable gifts and gift vouchers. 25% discount for bank cards till 10th of April. Visit CIB today. CIB revives once always.
And on Watch Light, passengers are complaining that excessive LED lights in public transport buses causes risk to the eyesight. Experts caution that these bright lights can harm passengers' health and well-being, highlighting the need for better regulation and awareness. Doctors warn their intense brightness can cause discomfort and health issues, especially during nighttime travel. They said prolonged exposure to bright lights in dark leads to sleep disturbances and fatigue. Passengers have also reported experiencing headaches, eye strain and overall discomfort due to the harsh lighting conditions inside buses. The passengers urged authorities to set standards for LED lighting in buses to ensure passenger safety and comfort. That came to you in Watch Light.
CIB New Year offer. Valuable gifts and gift vouchers. 25% discount for bank cards till 10th of April. Visit CIB today. CIB revives once always.
Coming up, World News.
Headlines of the world news. Pope Francis calls for ceasefire in Gaza and Ukraine in Easter message. Afghanistan universities remain closed to girls with no signs of reopening over 450 days. The Hungarian Prime Minister says he is making efforts towards reaching a diplomatic solution to the conflict between Kyiv and Moscow. Pope Francis has used his traditional Easter message to call for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and for the return of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. The 87-year-old pontiff led Easter Mass at the Vatican in front of thousands, despite concerns over his health. Referring to conflicts around the world, the Pope pleaded not to yield to the logic of weapons and rearming. Pope Francis said, "Peace is never made with arms, but with outstretched hands and open hearts." Tens of thousands of worshippers gathered in St. Peter's Square to hear the Pope. Universities in Afghanistan remain closed to girls with no signs of reopening on the horizon over 450 days. Expressing their frustration, female students highlighted the significant delay in their academic progress, urging the Talibani caretaker government to prioritize the reopening of universities this year. TOLO New reported female undergraduates attended that girls' education is extremely important and that it affects the literacy and overall development of entire families. The girls are insisting the authorities to let girls into colleges and universities since education is essential to the development of a robust and forward-thinking society. Professors at universities have also expressed concerns as well, believing that the nation's advancement will be hampered by the continued exclusion of female students from universities. The Hungarian Prime Minister has said he is making efforts towards reaching a diplomatic solution to the conflict between Kyiv and Moscow. Ukraine's path to peace and security could lie in establishing a buffer zone next to the Russian border, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has said. With the conflict between Moscow and Kyiv in its third year, the western flow of military and financial aid to Ukraine is dwindling while its army is losing ground. Orbán suggested that now is the time for a ceasefire, Hungarian magazine Mandanyeri wrote on Friday, quoting the Prime Minister's interview with former Austrian Chancellor Wolfgang Schäuble in Budapest. To end the world news, the headlines again. Pope Francis calls for ceasefire in Gaza and Ukraine in Easter message. Afghanistan universities remain closed to girls with no signs of reopening over 450 days. The Hungarian Prime Minister says he is making efforts towards reaching a diplomatic solution to the conflict between Kyiv and Moscow. That ends the world news.
Development news.
And on the development news, an agreement has been made to establish a strong relationship between Shanghai in China and the cities of Colombo and Hambantota in Sri Lanka. Under the agreement, it is scheduled to develop a maritime hub in the east and west shipping routes in the future. The agreement was made during Sri Lankan Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena's discussion with the mayor of Shanghai, Gongfeng, in Shanghai, China recently. The Prime Minister pointed out that further work can be carried out under this agreement, which was signed when his brother Prasanna Gunawardena was holding the post of Mayor Colombo. That came to you in Development News.
Moving on with sports news.
On sports news, it's cricket. Sri Lanka amassed 531, the highest ever test match total without an individual 100. Sri Lanka's rising star Kamindu Mendes has etched his name in the annals of cricket history, equaling the legendary Javed Miandad's record for the most test runs after 4 innings. With an impressive tally of 419 runs after 4 innings, Kamindu's feat mirrors Miandad's milestone achieved back in 1976. Kamindu's meteoric rise to prominence has been nothing short of extraordinary. The talented batsman narrowly missed out on setting a new world record for the most runs after 3 test innings just last week, falling short of R.A. Foster's mark from over a century ago. Kamindu Mendes also narrowly missed equaling Mohammad Azharuddin's record for the most number of centuries after 4 test innings as he ran out of partners. Sri Lanka were all out for 531 runs in the first innings and 6 batsmen scored half-centuries, including the highest score of 92 not out by Kamindu Mendes. In reply, Bangladesh were 51 for 1 wicket at the end of the day. That came to you in sports news.
Go ekatiyana youth ekat life eke change ekat niyamata set wenna as wahagena dakapu hina habe karanna youth ekat niyamata set wenna friendship eka menna.
The all-new NSB Itru Mitru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
The SLT Mobitel has entered into an agreement with BaseKit Platform, a UK-based company specializing in intuitive web development tools limited. The SLT Mobitel said it is introduced to provide a unique website development solution for the Sri Lankan small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. Accordingly, SLT Mobitel digitally will empower every Sri Lankan business, delivering innovative new services tailored for the Sri Lankan market. That came to you in Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak thiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු හින හැබැ කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithumitru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And on the economic news, based on the fuel pricing formula, a revision of fuel prices is likely to take effect from midnight today. The Ministry of Power and Energy stated that the fuel prices could possibly be reduced during this price revision. The fuel price revision for the month of March took place on the 4th of March. It is predicted the price of fuel will likely be reduced during this price revision in consideration to the rupee's continuous appreciation against the US dollar and the price of crude oil dropping in the global market. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Met Department said that showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in western, southern Sabrakamua and Uva provinces after 2 p.m. Fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters are likely at some places. Showers or thundershowers may occur at a few places in northwestern and central provinces and in Mannar and Vavuniya districts in the evening or at night. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in central, Sabrakamua, Uva and western provinces and in Gaul and Mathura districts during the morning. Sea areas around the island will be slightly to moderate. That came to you in the weather report. And to conclude this bulletin of news, the headlines again. Minister Harin Fernando says President Ranil Wickremesinghe should be re-elected as the next president. Health Ministry warns the number of HIV cases has seen a 14% increase. The Department of Meteorology has issued a heat index advisory for 5 provinces. The National Election Commission is to officially announce the upcoming presidential election in late July or early August. Prevailing dry weather has affected nearly 10,000 people across the island. Pope Francis calls for ceasefire in Gaza and Ukraine in Easter message. With that, we conclude this bulletin of news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.